The 2018 October Apple event has literally just finished, and honestly it was way more exciting than even the September event, especially for me because Macs is what I'm interested in the most in terms of Apple products, and we've seen quite a few updates in terms of the Macs. So here's a few interesting things about everything that Apple has announced today. Also guys, if you're not already following me on Instagram, follow me at ZONEofTECH for more behind the scenes shots, and also I'm doing a giveaway of something pretty cool that ends on Saturday, so definitely follow me on Instagram at ZONEofTECH for some behind the scenes shots and giveaways and some cool things. But yeah, I really wish that Apple would invite me to the Apple event one day. That would be my dream, to honestly, to be able to attend one of these events. But yeah, until then, here's everything that Apple has announced today. And the first thing was finally a brand new MacBook Air. Yes, finally, the last design of the MacBook Air was introduced in 2010, 8 years ago, so we haven't had a new design for 8 years. So what's new with this new MacBook Air? Well, first off is obviously the design. The design resembles the 12-inch MacBook a lot, however, it's thicker than the 12-inch MacBook, and it's basically in between the 12-inch MacBook and the MacBook Pro, which is strange because in that case, Apple should change the name to just, MacBook for this one, and then MacBook Air to the 12-inch MacBook, which, yes, it is thinner. So this time we do have two USB Type-C ports on the left-hand side, and fun fact, they are actually Thunderbolt 3 ports, and this is huge because now you can connect eGPUs to this thing, you can connect servers, you can connect 5K monitors, so this is huge. Thunderbolt 3 in a MacBook Air, I was not expecting this, I was just expecting these to be standard USB Type-C ports. But other than that, it does look really, really good. It comes in 3 colors, it comes in silver, space gray, and also gold, but the gold one looks a bit off. I don't know, it looks really, really orange or really yellow. We don't get the rose gold option from the 12-inch MacBook on the MacBook Air. And with that new design, we also get a brand new display. So this is the same 13.3-inch display that we had on the original MacBook Air, but this time it's finally a Retina display, so 2560 by 1600 resolution. The bezels are 50% thinner, and the display supports 48% more color. However, it's not the same display as on the MacBook Pro. It's the same resolution as on the 13-inch MacBook Pro, but it's not DCI-P3, doesn't have the same brightness, so I'll do a separate video on that. Basically, think of this as a larger 12-inch MacBook rather than, a smaller and thinner MacBook Pro. And there's a few more interesting updates. So the keyboard has been improved. We now have the 3rd generation butterfly mechanism, same as on the MacBook Pros. We also have the Force Touch trackpad from the MacBook Pros and the 12-inch MacBook. And then we also have the T2 processor. This is quite interesting. This is the brand new controller chip found in the MacBook Pros and the iMac Pro. And now you can use the Hey Cindy command, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to activate your devices. But that's pretty big. Encryption on the fly, microphone controllers, and lots of stuff is being done by the T2 processor in the background. We do not have a touch bar like on the MacBook Pros, but we do have Touch ID. So that's pretty cool to have. And then the speakers have also been improved. So now we have wider stereo sound, 25% louder, and 2 times more bass. And then we also have a 3 microphone array this time with the new MacBook Airs. And the whole body has 17% less volume than the previous generation, and it's also 10% thinner than the previous generation. It's not as thin as the 12-inch MacBook again, but it is thinner and much more portable than the previous MacBook Air. And also, every new MacBook Air is now made out of 100% recycled aluminum. Okay, so what about the performance on this thing? Well, it comes with 8th generation dual-core processors, up to 16 GB of 2133 MHz RAM, and up to 13 hours of iTunes movies playback. So that's pretty impressive in terms of the battery. And then also the processor is 8th generation. So fortunately, this is not quad core. That would have been pretty cool to see. Okay, so what about the price? Well, it starts from $1,199, which is actually cheaper a bit than the 12-inch MacBook. That's interesting. Again, Apple's doing the same thing where the MacBook Air is the cheapest one, and then the 12-inch MacBook is more expensive, but then you do get more, more features with the MacBook Air. You get a better display, actually. You get, better battery life, better processing power. So yeah, the 12-inch MacBook definitely needs an update fast. Now, aside from the MacBook Air, the second MacBook to get an update is actually the MacBook Pro. So Apple hasn't said anything about this at the Apple event, but a 15-inch MacBook Pros would be getting a new Vega graphics configuration starting November, which really, really sucks. Especially for everyone, including me, that bought a MacBook 2 months ago. The 15-inch MacBook Pros, the new ones came out 2 months ago. I got it, the maxed out version, and now, they're releasing new ones. Same processor, same amount of RAM, same storage options. The only difference is that now you'll be able to select a higher graphic option with the Vega graphics, which is apparently 60% better than, this version. So that sucks. If you haven't bought a 15-inch MacBook Pro yet, then that's pretty good news for you, but not for me. Now, the second Mac to be getting an update, or the third one, would actually be the new Mac Mini. So finally, guys, we have a brand new Mac Mini. This is actually the thing that I've been waiting for the most at the Apple event. And in terms of the Mac Mini, we haven't had any updates since 2014, so 4 years. And now the biggest update is actually the design. Same design, but it comes in space gray. But obviously the biggest change, the biggest improvement in terms of the Mac Mini is not in terms of the color, but in terms of the performance. And now we get quad-core processors on even the baseline model. It's an i3, but it's 8th generation, and then you can configure that up to an i7 6-core processor, again 8th generation. You get up to 60% faster graphics, integrated graphics, and then up to 5 times faster performance than before, which, you know, should have always been the case because the Mac Mini, the last one came out in 2014. So, you know, the performance should be significantly higher, you know, 4 years down the line. And there's a lot of other upgrades that we get. So up to 64 gigabytes of memory, up to 2666 megahertz. So that's quite impressive. All flash storage this time, even on the baseline model, up to 2 terabytes of storage. So no more hard drives on this thing. We also get the Apple T2 processor, which we now have on the MacBook Pros, on the MacBook Air, and also in the iMac Pro, and now we have it on the Mac Mini. So that's quite impressive. In case you want to do HEVC video encoding, it's now 30 times faster than the previous generation. So even the 8th generation processors are 2 times faster than the 7th generation if you want to do H.265 video encoding, by the way. But in terms of the Mac Mini, the biggest upgrade for me personally is the fact that it comes with 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. And this is huge, guys. This is huge because now you can connect 4 eGPUs to this thing. You can connect also a monitor through the HDMI cable that supports 4K 60 output. I mean, you can connect this thing to so many other things and expand it even further. This is the first modular Mac that we've seen in quite some time. It also supports 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is huge. You can select this in the basket when you configure it. So that's pretty big. So yeah, I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I'm gonna use this as a server in the office. So yeah, I'm gonna use this as a 24/7 operation. It was actually designed for this, and you can even stack more of them and use them for, you know, multiple renders in a compressor, for example. So this thing is huge. It starts at $800 in the US or 800 pounds in the UK. And the fact that you get 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports for that, you also get 2 USB Type-A ports, 10 gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, and also a headphone jack. Fun fact, yeah, that's quite big. So Mac Mini is by far the best update in terms of the Mac that we had in years. And finally, we have the brand new iPad. The brand new iPad X, the brand new iPad Pro 3rd generation, or just the new iPad Pro that we've been waiting for years. I've made the first video on this thing back in November last year, basically a year ago, on how this would look like and how big of a change this would be, and we finally have it. But first off, Apple said that iPads had more sales than any other laptops on the market, so that's quite impressive. The iPad is now the best-selling computer. I wouldn't really call it a computer on the market, so that's quite interesting to see. So yeah, in terms of this new iPad, yes, the bezels, they actually look a bit thick, quite thick. But yeah, compared to the previous generation iPad Pro, the top and bottom ones are significantly thinner. So no more home button. We also get Face ID with a depth sensing camera, which now works in both portrait and landscape. And remember the design options that I showed you guys a few days ago and months ago? The fact that the iPad Pro could come with, you know, the previous design or a new design with flat edges, basically a similar design to the iPhone 4 or the iPhone 5. So it turns out that that's actually the design of this new iPad. And the reason why Apple decided to go with that design option is probably because of the Apple Pencil 2, the 2nd generation, which now magnetically attaches to the side of the iPad, pretty much like the Surface Pen on the Microsoft Surface Pro. So that's pretty cool. I literally had an iPad Pro 10.5 inch. I still have it. I upgraded to the Surface Pro, and now I might upgrade back to the iPad, who knows. But yeah, overall, this is the biggest change coming to the iPad since the original iPad was introduced back in 2010. So yeah, the corners are now rounded. It uses the same pixel masking as on the iPhone XR. And yes, Apple's using the same liquid retina name as on the iPhone XR. Come on, Apple, stop using these names. It's an LCD display, nothing special. LCD, DCI-P3, really good color reproduction, but you know, it's still an LCD display. And what's really interesting about this is that, remember when I told you guys that Apple has basically 2 options in terms of the design of this new iPad. They could either keep the same footprint, the same size, and just make the display larger, or they could keep the same display size and make the whole body larger. And instead of doing one or the other, they've actually done both. So on the 10.5 inch iPad Pro, we now have a larger 11 inch display in the exact same form factor, 2388 by 11 by 1668 resolution. And then on the 12.9 inch iPad, which was massive, we have the same 12.9 inch display, but in a smaller and more portable form factor. And it seems like the thickness has now been reduced even further. So The iPad Pro 10.5 inch was 6.1 millimeters thick, or thin. This was actually the thinnest Apple product that Apple was selling in terms of iOS devices. That was quite impressive. Same thickness as the iPod Touch 6th generation. And now this one is 15% thinner, coming in at 5.93 millimeters thick. It also has 25% less volume, so it's even more portable than before. And it seems like the Apple A11X processor has actually been renamed into the Apple A12X, just as I predicted, just for consistency purposes. It's now based on a 7nm process, just like the Apple A12. It comes with an 8-core CPU, a 7-core GPU, 35% faster single-core performance, 90% faster multi-core performance. Apple says that this thing is faster than 92% of the PC laptops on the market. But what's even more interesting is that this thing is probably even faster than all of Apple's MacBooks. Not even joking, because even the Apple A12 processor inside the iPhone XS is faster single-core wise than the top-of-the-line 2017 15-inch MacBook Pro with a 7920 HQ processor. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the A12X is even faster than this year's 15-inch MacBook Pro. We also get 2 times faster GPU performance, and Apple says that this new iPad, the Apple A12X processor inside this new iPad, is actually the same in terms of graphical performance as on an Xbox One S. So that's really impressive considering how thin this thing is. 5.93 millimeters thin compared to, the Xbox One S, which is basically a beast. However, can you play Red Dead Redemption 2 on this thing? No. Horizon Zero Dawn? No. You can't even play that on the Xbox, but you get the idea. What's the point of having so much performance if you cannot really use it? Well, now you can kind of use it a bit more than before, so you now have up to 1 terabyte of flash storage on this new iPad, which is insane. And also, finally, we have USB Type-C, just as I expected, which is huge. We can now connect monitors, which you could do before, but now you can connect 4K monitors on this new iPad, which is insane. Also, USB Type-C docks, more about that in a future video. And also, you can charge your iPhone from your iPad. How cool is that? If only the iPhone also supported USB Type-C. That would have been even better. Now, speaking of ports, we no longer have the headphone jack on the new iPad Pro. Also, we do not get an adapter in the box. You have to buy a separate adapter, which is USB Type-C to 3.5mm headphone jack. So you need to buy that separately. So that sucks. Also, what doesn't suck is the new Apple Pencil 2.0. So this one comes with a brand new design. It actually looks like a pencil now. And it automatically pairs with the new iPad. It attaches to the side and it charges wirelessly now. So that's how it should have been from the beginning. And then we also get a brand new smart keyboard, which now comes with 2 angles. And I don't know, from the images that I've seen, the keys do look a bit larger and with more tactile feedback. We also get improved speakers, even better than last year. We get a woofer and tweeter pairs on all of them. And then we also get Bluetooth 5.0, gigabit class LTE, just like on the iPhone XS. So yeah, lots of improvement on this new iPad. This is the biggest change that's ever happened to an iPad from a design perspective, from a performance perspective, and also in terms of the accessories. Now, in terms of the apps and the accessories, Photoshop is, by the way, coming to the iPad. This is pretty huge. So it does look completely different from the desktop interface that you've all been used to, but it seems to be quite optimized for touch, even though at the event it lagged quite a bit. But the good news is that this is the full version of Photoshop, and then you can even put your PSDs in AR with the dedicated AR app called Project Aero from Adobe, which is pretty impressive. Now, it starts from $800, and that's for the baseline 64GB model, so that's a pretty substantial price increase. And then keep in mind that a pencil and the keyboard, they're sold separately, so you need to buy those at a separate cost, and they're also more expensive than last year as well. So interesting enough, you can still buy the previous versions of the iPad Pros, and same applies to the MacBook Air. You can still buy that. I don't see why anyone would be doing that, probably until stocks last. But yeah, other than that, it was a pretty interesting event. I mean, lots of announcements. I was honestly expecting to see some new iMacs. We haven't seen any new iMacs, which probably means that a new design is coming, hopefully soon. We haven't seen the AirPods, the 2nd generation AirPods, or the AirPower. So yeah, interesting. We'll see what happens about that. But yeah, in the end, it seems like everything was announced basically the same as I was expecting, and basically the same how I've told you in my Leaks and Rumors episodes. The only difference is being 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports on the Mac Mini instead of 2, as I expected. And also on the MacBook Air, we have both ports on the left-hand side instead of one on the left and one on the right. And then we also have the magnetically attachable pencil for the iPad Pros. But other than that, everything is pretty much the same. And also, I was not expecting the MacBook Pros to be getting an update, Apple. Why? Why are you updating the MacBook Pros literally 3 months after, the previous generation came out? That really sucks for me because I bought one. But yeah, definitely subscribe and enable notifications if you're new to the channel. I'll be doing individual videos on all of these products, hands-on. So everything you need to know, stay tuned for that. And yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram again if you want to see more behind the scenes stuff and the giveaway that I'm ending on Saturday, this Saturday. And yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments which product are you most excited for in terms of the release. Which one are you getting? The Mac Mini for me is by far the biggest update. Can't wait to play around with one. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next video. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.